My video for February the 11th, 2019 is video number 2993, and the title is Metaphysics, Religion, and Spirituality. These words are all related as I see it. Since my late childhood, early teens, and adult years, I have focused on such things. Metaphysics is defined as, quote, the branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space, end quote. Religion, as I see it, is a belief system that is centered in the ego. I'm right. It is self-righteousness. I think we all are trained in this aspect since it is a generational thing passed down to us from our parents. From my perspective, spirituality transcends religion, seeking solutions based on the metaphysical reality that everything is connected, at least in essence. We all breathe the same air, even if it is polluted. Our bodies are mostly empty space from the point of view that physical reality consists of atoms. Energy holds all of it together. I used to think the metaphysical community was more spiritual than religious. However, experience seems to have something very different to say about this. Unfortunately, to many, these get blended together, as many things in our world. Let's take a look at this. Yes, this is a difficult subject because I'm going to be touching on some things that to some will be controversial, and I'll be perhaps pointing out some things that there are others that would like to, don't talk about that, Ron. It's not acceptable to talk about that. It creates division. Well, division is something we create in our mind. It's a matter of choice how we choose to perceive something and respond or react to situations and things like that. As I said in the blurb, since childhood, I have been interested in things that were religious. My parents used to have a 10-volume set of Bible stories for children, complete with pictures, and I can still remember the picture of David when he slew Goliath, holding Goliath's head up on a sword. I imagine he was just a teenager at the time, that is, David was. And things like that greatly influenced me. And of course, I was raised in a very strict fundamentalist evangelical Assembly of God denomination. My mother's family was basically Baptist and my dad's was Pentecostal. But of course, my dad's, prior to my dad's family, they moved from Methodism into Pentecostal beliefs. In any case, this is something that I've been exposed to all of my life. That's the point that I'm making. And I don't remember exactly when it was, probably around the late 1980s, certainly the early 1990s, I learned about metaphysical principles. And I quickly adapted to that idea. And there were at the time two metaphysical groups in my local community in Brevard County. One was called Brevard Metaphysicians, and the other was called the Metaphysical Singles Group. Now, I was not the founder of either of those. I came in the 1990s, and so I don't know exactly how it transpired, but I became the one that was putting out newsletters announcing meetings, not just for those groups, but for all metaphysical spiritual communities in the area. And I had a newsletter that announced the events for these groups. And I also was involved in distributing a magazine called Horizons, which I'm not going to go into much detail about that. And I and from that, I started the magazine Paradox, which I was the editor and publisher of for 5 years. So the metaphysical community and I go back that far to the early 1990s. And Brevard Metaphysicians evolved into the metaphysical discussion group. And there was a mutiny by a few people in the metaphysical singles group, in which when I thought that I was going to be starting a relationship, I stepped away and left a certain individual in charge. And anyway, that individual, when the relationship didn't work out, and I've said this in recent videos as well, I went back to the group, but I was told, you can't run the group anymore. And there were a few people, a handful of people, that made it so that I was no longer part of the group that I had been leading for a number of years at that point. And that group today has become a group known as the Metaphysicians Circle. Now, the Metaphysical Discussion Group was in my house, but when I lost my home, because my daughter and her family lost their home and ended up moving in with me, those meetings ended. So the Metaphysical Discussion Group came to an end at that point in time. So I'm giving you some of that history. Now, in more recent time, as in last year, I, of course, was attending the Metaphysicians Circle on a fairly regular basis. And when one of the people who had manipulated the metaphysical singles group and taken it over, one of those people is the leader of the Metaphysicians Circle, but she was going out of town, out of the state actually, for a period of time, and then got sick and ended up being out for 2 months, and during which time she turned the group over to me. And I immediately started scheduling speakers ahead of time and putting out a calendar of speakers that were coming up in the future. And finally, after 2 months of this individual being away, she did return, and people were praising me they loved the idea that I was organized and had a lot of characteristics that this other individual didn't have. It often waits to the last minute to announce the speaker for that week, even sometimes as late as Saturday before the meeting on Sunday. And so people liked it, that I was planning ahead and scheduling things ahead of time. Now, all of the things that I scheduled didn't always work out the way that I want for various reasons. I had one person tell me a couple weeks before she was scheduled to speak that something had come up and she couldn't make it. And another one never showed up for the thing, but we ended up having a beautiful discussion. But in any case, there was something planned, and the numbers had increased during that time. The attendance had gone up from sometimes was maybe 8 to 12 people. It went up sometimes a little bit, 20, 21 people. Sometimes even they would bring younger children that didn't sign in, and so there were times that there were even more people that were present. But now it has turned out that I've basically I've been removed from the mailing list of the people, which I put together from fragments of people that had been at war with this other individual. There was animosity. There shouldn't be animosity. That's the point that I'm trying to make. We should be able, as spiritual people, to be able to communicate and work together. And I get frustrated sometimes because that doesn't happen in the world, but it doesn't even happen in small groups like the metaphysical community here in Brevard County. There's rivalries and clashes even between people in our own spiritual community. And it's not a matter of everybody seeing things the same way. It's a matter of growing up enough to love and listen. And that is how we build bridges. Instead, what's happening again is walls are being built and there's more and more separation. Thank you folks for listening, and namaste.